Hi beautiful souls, it's Tan here today with another video in our North Node series, and today we're going to be doing North Node in the 7th house. So I have made a North Node introduction video, links up above and description box below, so you can check that out first. If you're not familiar with what the North Node is, you can come back and watch this video. So in this video, I'll I'll be talking about North Node in the 7th house, and then I'll be going through having a North Node through each of the signs in the 7th house. If you have a North Node in the 7th house, you will automatically have a South Node in the 1st house. With a South Node in the 1st house, if you are stuck in this sector of your life, you will kind of feel like a lot of discontentment and like your soul slowly begins to decay. If you move too much into the North Node, there can be a bit of an obsession and a bit of a fanaticism there. The balancing of the North and the South Node is what we want to do, meaning that we move towards the North Node, but we never forget the lessons, the skills that we have carried over with regards to our South Node placement. And so when we do that, we'll find that this area, this North Node area of life, it brings new meaning to your life, that you are able to experience possibilities that you've never even thought of before. So with a North Node in the 7th house and a South Node in the 1st house, the fragmentation of the soul lies in your preoccupation with your own capabilities, your own abilities, and needing approval for that. Your soul may fall easily into a pattern of depending only on yourself. Even when you receive advice from other people, not really taking that, and then being responsible and accountable only for yourself and your own life. This is going to be a little bit hard to hear, but whether you realize it or not, there's a part of you deep inside of you that you are comfortable with devoting all of your energy only to your independence. And any slight inhibition, even if it comes in the form of a suggestion or a caring advice, can completely stop you from wanting to relate to other people. Yet as you begin to become more self-sufficient and achieve more in your life, you still feel like your soul slowly begins to decay and a certain discontentment. Because you are here in this life to learn to integrate your soul through a process of forming partnerships and relationships and making the necessary sacrifices in order to maintain and keep them. The 7th house is the house of marriage, one-to-one relationships, partnerships. The 1st house is the house of the self and the identity. So it would be useful with this North Node placement for you to step away from behaviors of self-protection and competition, especially when you feel like someone is about to get ahead of you. You must detach yourself from that. It's also really useful with this North Node placement to move away from what I would call false giving, meaning that when you're giving something to another person, it has to come from a place of you really having stepped into their shoe and really understanding what it feels like to be in their place, and completely understanding the other person and what they need from your heart, and then giving. You are moving away from giving because you may unconsciously fear losing the other person, or because you want them to stop asking for your help, or any other ulterior motives besides from the purity of the act of giving and the sincerity of giving. So in a typical dictionary, giving actually means providing support and care for another person and love to another person, and that is what you're learning to do in this life. So when you first get in touch with your North Node, and this can happen at any time in your life depending on who you meet in your life and how your chart is, and if there's anything else that's supporting this or pulling you back from this, but the first encounter with the North Node tends to lead to a bit of an obsession and fanaticism. And with the North Node in the 7th house, this can mean quickly and sometimes blindly jumping into relationships and marriage. One that may not be right for you, and then you end up having to sacrifice and give away more than you should for possibly a dead relationship to work again. And this is going to be hard to hear, but based on statistics as well as my studies of lots of natal charts and doing lots of birth chart readings, is that the majority of people, not everyone, who have a North Node in the 7th house are divorced, or they're single for a really long time, or there's a separation of some kind with their partners, and that could even be in terms of consciousness and understanding. It's really not connecting in that sense. There's a certain karmic feeling attached to most of your relationships, especially if you also have, you know, Venus in the 12th house maybe, or sometimes it's Juno in the 12th house. Like feeling like, how did this person even come into my life? So there are many soulmates and moonmates for you out there, and I've made a video on this, so I'll provide a link to that up above in the description box below if you want to check out my interpretation of soulmates and moonmates. But the cosmic purpose of relationships is that it exists for us to learn more about ourselves and about life. And there's lots of wonderful wisdom to be gained through relationships. With the North Node in the 7th house, you have spent a lifetime, and even a past life if you believe in that, cultivating your own abilities and skills and strength, capabilities, confidence, and even a healthy ego. You have all of that. That there's kind of like, there's nowhere else to go. Because, you know, there's a limit to how much healthy ego one person should have. You've kind of reached that limit now, if you know what I mean. Now is the time for you to learn to share a life with someone. And this means making necessary sacrifices here and there, not to make the other person happy, not just for the sake of it, not because you want to be a good person, but because you love and you care, and your big heart, and you have a big heart, your big heart finds joy in the giving. You are actually someone who can instill so much hope and confidence in others that it will change others' lives. There are many beautiful souls out there, and this can sometimes be your husband or your wife, that they may not have as much confidence and strength as you. And you're here to dedicate and devote your life into making sure that they get that. And all you have to do is be kind, be understanding, be caring, and giving in all its purity and sincerity. And watch as the universe rewards you with equal and healthy, satisfying relationships. So a couple of things that you can do to get in touch with your North Node in the 7th house is to start seeing the other perspective, to start asking what it is that others want, to take advice from time to time, to do a bit of surveys, and to gather feedback and others' opinions before you make decisions. So the sign that your North Node falls into is going to show the qualities and the traits that you need to develop in order to feel whole in a partnership with another. So if you have a North Node in Aries in the 7th house, you will have a South Node in Libra in the 1st house. So you are here to learn to adopt self-confidence in relationships, meaning that you're here to learn the direct and straightforward approach to relationships, regardless of what the outside world may tell you you should do, because it's more appropriate. If you have a Taurus North Node in the 7th house, you will have a Scorpio South Node in the 1st house. You are here to learn to form simple, easy relationships. Yes, it is possible to have a simple and easy relationship. With the Scorpio South Node, you may not think so, but you must be conscious in your relationships. The difficulties may lie in forming relationships because of some underlying unconscious motivations like money or sex, security needs, desire, fear, which can cause a bit of an impulsiveness and an obsession. You're here to learn to form self-sufficient relationships where you and the other are not in debt to each other in any way. You are here to learn to enjoy the simple things in life with another. Be patient as well, and understand that good relationships may take time to unfold naturally. If you have a Gemini North Node in the 7th house, you will have a Sagittarius South Node in the 1st house. So you're here to learn to find variety in your relationships. It may mean to try out different relationships with different people, or to have variety within a one long-term committed relationship. That will depend on other things in your chart and which one you may prefer. Because there is so much to learn in the process of learning, experimenting, and being stimulated by another person. This is also a great placement for someone in sales or promotion if you work with it. If you have a Cancer North Node in the 7th house, you will have a Capricorn South Node in the 1st house. This is someone who, when really working with this placement, can turn out to be some of the best, ultimate givers. You're gonna have to maybe work with holding space for another person so that they can express their pain, their sadness, their emotions, and then empathize with them in order to know what you need to give. And you may have to be a little bit vulnerable and open up in the process. You may need to hug or cry or be loving and warm in front of another person in order to really feel their pain and know what you need to be giving them. If you have a Leo North Node in the 7th house, you will have an Aquarius South Node in the 1st house. And this placement makes me think of that scientist who always sort of works alone in their lab, but now they have to come out of that and then sort of promote, PR their work, their inventions. They need to now promote their genius creations. Creativity and charm that you develop will be what helps you connect better with others. You're here to learn to have fun in your relationships, be inventive and creative in what you can give others and how you can ignite joy in others. If you have a Virgo North Node in the 7th house, you will have a Pisces South Node in the 1st house. With this nodal axis, you may be drawn to life partners, romantic partnerships, who you can also do business with and work with. If not, then there is a need to learn to be more practical within your relationships. Long-term relationships generally come in 5 stages, and in stage 2 of long-term relationships, it's called the reality sets in, or the crisis stage. Pretty much like that. It's about learning to accept another's flaws, but not accepting their unhealthy behaviors. You're learning to be able to give practical service to others, yet being realistic with how much you can do to actually help. Because you can't do it all, otherwise it's going to create a dependency. That's going to create this cycle of victim and savior and martyrdom. So if you have a Libra North Node in the 7th house, that means you have an Aries South Node in the 1st house, and Libra already rules the 7th house, so the North Node is now in Libra in its own house. This can actually be sort of a lonely placement because of the double Aries and the 1st house. There's a need here to make it conscious that you're not going to be able to survive alone in the world. That without love and sharing, life can be meaningless. And to really admit this to yourself is going to be very important. It's not really that you're weak or that you're dependent. It's about relationships. Life is about relationships. It's about being humble and offering help to others. If you have a Scorpio North Node in the 7th house, you will have a Taurus South Node in the 1st house. The desire nature can really come out strongly in relationships here, meaning that you can sacrifice a lot for a relationship and a partnership, but then feeling resentful that you're not really getting the same in return. So the trick here is that you're learning balance. If the power lies within you, the giving can be endless, because no matter how much you give, nobody is going to take away your power, and you still have that within yourself. Because the fear that when you're not getting enough back in return, it could come from feeling like powerless, and that you've given so much and now you've also given away your power. So the power must be cultivated within. You are learning to really understand the psychological depths of your partners, your relationships, and why the people that you're in relationships with may need something, and that can make for a really great giver. But be careful to not over psychoanalyze them in the process. With the Sagittarius North Node in the 7th house, you will have a Gemini South Node in the 1st house. With this placement, there is much wisdom that you can give to other people. You may build a business around spiritual consultation if you want. Other than that, you're learning to be enthusiastic and optimistic in relationships and about relationships. You're here to speak up and speak your truth and not say things to please other people or say something that you think they want to hear. Otherwise, the real depth of connection will not be built. With the Capricorn North Node in the 7th house, you will have a Cancer South Node in the 1st house. With this placement, you are learning to be your own authority in relationships without needing to control every aspect of it as well. You can do this by the integrity in which you pursue and maintain commitments that gains respect from others. And the authority is yours. But you must use this power to gather resources for others and provide for others and not just for yourself. With an Aquarius North Node in the 7th house, you will have a Leo South Node in the 1st house. By addressing one issue, the problems and issues of one person at a time, you can slowly impact lives and the consciousness of people to a point where it becomes an impactful change for the whole society. You're here to learn to be a genius at gaining insight into people's psychology. And with that, know how to innovate their consciousness as a way of giving. And learning tolerance is another important part of this nodal axis sign. Adopting a non-judgmental, tolerant, accepting attitude in your relationships is what is necessary to make it last. If you have a Pisces North Node in the 7th house, you will have a Virgo South Node in the 1st house. This is a placement of someone who is learning to be highly romantic and also compassionate in relationships. Accepting others' flaws is really a thing to learn to do here, because you're learning the art of adaptation in relationships. That's real maturity. This placement may also make for a great romance novelist if other things in the chart support it. Neptune is meeting Venus here. So with faith and trust, you can make your relationship fantasies come true. You will achieve a high degree of peace in your life when you let go of the need to analyze your life and start learning to unconditionally give to another person with boundaries, of course, always with boundaries. So guys, that's my take on the North Node in the 7th house. Comment below what sign your North Node is in the 7th house and let us know what your experiences have been. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you haven't. I do birth chart readings, synastry, and relationship readings. All the information is on my website. You can check that out. And yeah, I'll be back very soon, beautiful souls. Bye!